Assalamu my dudes, and welcome back to PLB Green. Today I'm doing the $50 bonsai challenge, where I have to find not only a tree but also a pot for $50 AUD. Challenge accepted. Wish me luck.
Ah yes, my first stop, the Flower Power. I like Flower Power because they do bargains. They have a bargain bin. Bunnings doesn't have a bargain bin, but Flower Power does, and Bargain Bin is my middle name. This is my area. The Bargain Bin. Ooh, $9? 10? That's pretty good. None of these will make good trees, though. Oh, Callistemon 50% off.
Back home from Flower Power, and this is the tree I ended up getting. It is a Australian native, a Callistemon Red Balls of Fire. I think the reason it's called Red Balls of Fire is when it gets new foliage, it comes in really bright red, and yeah, it just looks like a big burning ball of fire. It has a really nice trunk. It's quite thick. It's quite a mature tree. It's got this kind of flaky texture to it, kind of like a paper bark, if you've ever seen one of those. Now, it was $80, original price, 50% off, as you saw on the sign, which made it $40. Now that gives me $10 buffer for my pot. I couldn't find a pot big enough or cheap enough for this tree at Flower Power, but I think I might be in luck for a budget pot at Bunnings.
Bunnings Bonsai section. Ew. He did. These pots are way too expensive. I got $10, Bunnings. Okay, 40, 25. Ew, they're ugly as well. Time to change my plan. Terracotta pots are much cheaper. These are technically bonsai pots over here. They're low and wide. Hello there. $9.68. I'm 32 cents under budget.
Now that I have my pot, I'm going to start by taking this tree out of this stock pot and checking out the root base. I've got to be really careful here because Australian natives don't really like to be bare rooted. I'm going to have to leave a big root ball on this thing with the soil included, just to ensure its survival. Step 1, pull out giant tray. All you have to do is tip it on its side gently, and now I don't want to disturb this flaky bark, so I'll be as gentle as I possibly can. What? Dude, look at this dude. It's an earwig. What? Wait, do these bite? They have pincers. Got it on my turntable with a soil catching tray. Oh my, look how thick this is with roots, man. Dude, and then also fine. There's a few thicker ones wrapping around. Let's see if I can... Are there any thick roots on the surface? Just go down a little bit, see if I can find a root plane. There may not even be a root plane with really thick roots yet. But I don't really want to go any lower than this for now, and you can already see I'm peeling off the bark. This part of the bark was under the soil anyway, so it was already damp and kind of damaged. But for now, I'm just taking off a bit of the top layer. Of roots. Work my way around. It's like there's this big mat of tangled roots just below the surface, which are just too high considering I haven't found the tree's root plane yet. A few people have been asking me about updates on the trees that I've worked on in previous videos. Because my channel's not very old, you know, the trees that I've worked on have changed, and a lot of them have grown in significantly, but there's no drastic changes. But I'm going to do a update video soon on general update video on my bonsai collection, including a detailed update on all the trees that I've worked on so far on PLB Green, just to show you guys how they've gotten along since some of the decisions I've made with them. Very interesting tree. Normally I can find by digging down around the trunk this far, you can find a root plane and a clear guide, but as I said, I can't find the root plane yet, and I don't want to go down too far. Now this is the pot it has to fit into, and it probably fits in there, but I want to add a bit more bonsai soil than this original potting mix soil. So I'm going to, and I don't need the roots all the way down here. I know I'm not going to use them in the future. So I will take a saw and just cut off the bottom 10 centimeters or so. Now this can seem brutal, but I'm just cutting through some really fine, not good for the saw because there's rocks and things in the soil, but it's an old saw, so it should be fine. So there we go. See all the roots on the bottom here that I've cut through are again just thin roots. I'm going to use a little bit of fly screen to block the drainage hole. And I've got my bonsai soil here. It's actually cacti and succulent mix, and it is much cheaper to buy than the bonsai mix, but it works just fine. I don't want to put the root ball directly on the bottom. I want to give it some soil to grow into. So in this case, I'm going to make like a bowl, a little bowl of soil. Normally I would do the opposite, where you would mound it towards the middle. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty good now. It's got a nice gap, room for me to fill in soil, which is what I'm going to do now. So the last step of the repotting process before I tackle this epic canopy is just to go around and fill the gap between the root ball and the edge of the pot. Just use your fingers to poke and prod the soil down. And normally I would put a rock or two on the planting at this initial stage to help the tree stabilize in the pot and stop it from blowing down in the wind. But because this one has such a huge root ball on it, it's not going anywhere. So it doesn't actually need rocks for stabilization. So I was up last night thinking about the surface roots of this tree, and I couldn't bear to not know what was going on. So I kept digging this morning. It's the next day, and I finally found some surface roots that were thick enough for some nabari. They're pretty nice. They're going in a very haphazard direction. I've got a nice thick one here. This one here is okay, but it's a bit high. I'm going to pin it down in a minute. This one here is not ideal. It comes out there and swings and goes in the opposite direction. And that one kind of does the same. But I'm not opposed to bizarre root bases. You see trees in real life and they have unique and diverse root bases. And I'm not a massive fan of the straight down and out at the perfect angle for every root. So I will work on these roots later because they're a little bit too obscure. But for now, I quite like them, and I've already picked a front for the tree. I've marked it here with a piece of wire. It's just there. It's got some root flare here. It's got a little bit of a bend, comes up and into the branch structure. It's very bushy up here. I'm going to be thinning it out quite a bit today and taking quite a few branches off. I've also got a stack of medium wire because I think I may or may not, we'll see how we go, need to bend some of these branches into an ideal position. I'll try and do none, but if I have to do one or two, I'm not opposed to it. If you watch my channel, you know that I'm into the clip and grow style of bonsai development, but every now and then, especially at the start of a tree's life into a bonsai, I don't mind wiring one or two. Although these branches on this Australian native, this great balls of fire, they feel very, very brittle and quite stubborn. So the first step, now that I've revealed these nabari, the next step is going to be trimming out some of these branches, thinning this crispy canopy. It's only crispy because this is how the plant grows. A lot of Australian natives are, they've got adaptations for water conservation, and this kind of like crispy leaf, although it sounds and like it, the crackling of it sounds like it might be dry and dead, I assure you it's very much alive, and you can tell that by the nice lush green colour. They hang, they're in this beautiful skinny leaf kind of fashion like a eucalypt. All of these things are adaptations for trying to save water because it doesn't rain here much in Australia. Well, in some places. So let's get into the branch selection. So just quickly, I'm going to try and pin this nabari root down a little bit using just a little U shape of bonsai wire. It's coming out of the trunk, it's a nice thick root, and it comes out lower and then it kind of rises above the soil line, and it would be really nice. I'd love to keep it, and the only way I'm going to be able to keep it for this tree is if I pin it down and encourage it to grow down into the soil rather than having this kind of bump, I guess. So let's see how we go. I'll just go close to the edge. Now there are a lot of roots here underneath. This might be difficult to push down, but there we go. A little bit of soil on top. When you first look at a bonsai, you're really looking for taper, and what taper is going from thick and gradually getting thinner. And you want taper in the trunk, which this tree has, and you also want it in the branches. So you want the branches to be marginally thinner than the trunk itself. Saying that, this branch right here, this kind of forward-facing branch, is quite thick, and it's coming straight towards the viewer. And I think the tree is going to benefit from having it removed. Now, if I do remove it, it's going to take out a good portion. We just follow the branch up. it's going to take out a big portion of foliage, so I don't think I can take out the whole thing. The tree might just look a little bit lopsided and silly. So what I'll do is I'll start by taking off, I like this curvy branch here. Look at this one. So I'm going to try and take off that thick branch above that curvy branch. Just by clipping it here. Like that. Yeah, look at that. That's kind of like, it's got a lot of dead branches on it and some kind of insect cocoon. Dude, what the? I'm just gonna leave that over there. Already looking better. Yeah, I really like this curvy branch here, so I'll try and continue to develop that. That curvy branch I was just talking about has a branch that comes off underneath it, and I don't know, I don't like it. It's gotta go. It's gotta go. When you're doing a bonsai initially, setting it up for the future, you kind of you want all of the branches to try and, you want the trunk to flow up and the branches to flow out in like that, not in a weird, obscure way. And a branch dipping down like that in this early stage is not what we want. I just spent a good part of half an hour off camera trimming the Deadwood on this Australian native. It was just all tiny finicky stuff like this, tiny little branch. But it's a classic Australian native attribute that you will find. Australian natives loved to die back, on a whim, in fact. So have a look at all of the Deadwood, but also a couple of sneaky live branches that were kind of in the way that I cut off so far. All that debris is the Deadwood / worst branches ever. But now we can get into the real business of turning this tree into a bonsai by selecting the right branches. There's a couple of finite rules in the bonsai world, and the first one is, in my opinion, try to take out branches that are growing in towards the center of the tree. Now, I don't want to make any big decisions on the branches like this one here, which is growing out of the trunk quite low yet, because it might be a part of the tree, and I don't want to just go crazy and cut it off. But I know that any branch like this coming off it towards the inside of the tree and cluttering up the design and covering up the trunk, which is really what we want to see in a bonsai, I can take off. So I'm going to follow my first bonsai rule, and that is taking off any it's more deadwood, any branches that grow in towards the center of the tree or are just in a awkward position. This guy here is probably going to come off, to be honest, but for now it's not growing in towards the center of the tree, so I'm going to leave it. So I'm going by my first rule, or the first rule. Take off any branches that are growing in towards the center of the tree. Getting that one up there. So now that applies, of course, mainly in the lower to mid canopy. But as you get towards the top, branches that grow in towards the tree aren't necessarily bad. They definitely can be, like this one here. This one isn't only growing in towards the center of the tree, but it's crossing the leader. even though the front is there, it's not cool, bro. Nobody crosses the leader. Not in my world, not in the PLB green world. He did. Take that dude out. So I'm just going to follow the first rule and take out any branches that grow in towards the center, like that one. Bye. And always keep in mind where your front of the tree is, even though this is in a circular pot. That's why I mark it with a piece of wire or a popsicle stick. So you can always spin the tree around to the front and just triple check what you're taking off. So far so good. You can see the canopy slowly thinning out, especially towards the bottom. Are there any more branches facing in? Yes. This guy up here. I mean, I'm still working on the first rule of PLB Green Bonsai, but man, this guy is really testing me. See this branch here? Comes at a weird angle up, crosses over this one. That there's like 3 branches coming from one. He did. But in time. Focus on the rule. I think, saying that, I'm going to get rid of one of these 3. This one here, this central one that starts there, grows up, awkwardly crosses over, and then up and out. It's got branches coming in towards the center at the top, and actually it's mostly dead up the top. So let's take it out. Oh. Yeah, see? Mostly dead except for this one random snapped branch. This is all dead anyway. So that was a good move. And that clears that awkward space up, which probably needs more clearing, but just cleaning that cut up. Clears it up a little bit in the meantime. Alright, let's keep going with the first rule. Any more inward growing branches? I see you there. Die, inward growing branch. I'm moving on to another rule where I want there to be taper. So, as I said earlier, going from thick to thin, and the further it comes up to the top of the tree, the thinner the branches get. So, this guy here, which isn't too much foliage, is very straight with no taper, and I want to really accentuate this wavy branch. So I'm going to take that off. Like this. I can probably clean that up a bit better. So now I'm just going to take my branch cutters and I'm going to go right through and continue the prune of unwanted branches, thinning the canopy. Like that. I keep turning the tree back to the front. That's the front from the camera's perspective. But from my perspective, this is the front. I think it's just a little bit to the right. This branch coming in towards the center and straight up can go. Hey, there's a little beetle. Look at that guy. What is that? Hey, oh, it's gone. I also want my branches to go from 1 into 2, and then into 2, and then into 2 into etc., etc. So when it comes to choosing those 2, you look for branch direction. And if they're pointing straight up, or if they're, you know, they don't work with the rest of the tree, take them off. Should I leave? There's a tiny little branch coming off this back one here, so I'll cut it there. It's going to lose a lot of foliage. Oh, that was a big one. Alright, I can always use some wire on that guy. I don't really want, oh, maybe slightly. There's a branch coming off the bottom. This has 400 branches coming off the same one. You want to look at the tree from every angle as well. You really don't want to make it too flat from one angle or two-dimensional. And this plane here is looking a little, there's a lot of branches in this plane here. So I'm thinking of cutting that back a bit. How can I do that? Maybe take it off this one. Alright, I'm going to leave the branch pruning at that for now. Get my scissors and just take a little bit off the top of a lot of these really long branches. Now what I'm trying to do is look for a leaf that is pointing outwards. So that leaf is pointing outwards because every new bud that comes in will come off at the top leaf bud. You see there's a bud just there, a tiny one. And that leaf is pointing outwards, so that branch will grow outwards. So that's what I'm trying to do. I think I might be able to get away with just clip and grow today. I might not have to wire anything, which is pretty good news because wiring is horrible. It's starting to look like a tree. You know, now that I'm doing all this pruning, this could be the front too, and that's why it's in a round pot. But I still think around this has more dimension, like here. Anyway, I don't have to choose a front yet. Just doing some initial pruning elements to the tree. Trying to get it to turn into a bonsai, which as soon as I put it in this pot, it basically did. Now I want this to have like a dome kind of shape. So I can just come to the top and try and get it to curve down like an umbrella. That's the goal anyway. That's pretty good. So this is how much I've taken off the tree. As I said, looks like quite a lot. And here's the tree itself. It's quite nice. It's looking like a little gum tree, a middle-aged gum tree, I think. I quite like it so far. Alright, here it is in all its glory. Doesn't have an official front yet, either there or there. Not sure yet, but at this initial early stage of transitioning this nursery stock to a bonsai, this is pretty good. Here we go, the full turnaround. Not bad! For $50, including tree and pot. It's a pretty well established mature tree. I'm really looking forward to the future of this tree and seeing where it goes. Hopefully it flushes back in this summer with a lot of new growth, and maybe that growth will even be bright red and it will live up to its name, or Great Ball of Fire. But so far so good. I'm very pleased with that, and I think I've done a half decent job.
Here's the tree 2 weeks later. It's already flushed out in growth. I put some Aussie mulch down to conserve water. The new growth is really light and soft. It's not red at all. Maybe it will turn red as the tree hardens off. I really like this tree. It's got great future ahead of it. Good price. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time. PLB Green.